I know you'll be speaking about security and about the economy in a most admirable manner. I must confess, I've learned things tonight I have never known before. But I want to say, all of you, from all the discussion so far, I've not seen anyone touch the fundamentals of our problems, what we call the national question. You can't talk about a robust economy. You can't drive away insecurity when the very organogram that brings you together is fundamentally faulted, and you are riding an aircraft without a compass. I will want us to come back to this issue. The Constitution is the birth certificate of any nation, the best certificate of any nation. Do we have a constitution that can drive this your vision? When our present constitution is actually a schedule attached to decree number 24 of 1999, and that the General Abdulsalami Abubakar government actually held the 1999 constitution, elections without a constitution. Now, you want a robust economy. You have not looked at the present constitution that has 167 items on the exclusive legislative list. What is the business of the federal government? Licensing your vehicles, plate numbers of your cars. Federal government. What is their business with education? Unity schools. With all respect, without meaning to sign off, I just returned from the US on Friday. Do you know that the Miami International Airport and the Jackson Hasby Airport in Atlanta, Georgia, are controlled by county councils, what we call local government areas here? County councils, local government areas control Atlanta, the busiest international airport in the whole world. In Nigeria, it is the federal government that controls all airports. They will control your marriage. Do you know that for your marriage to be valid, you must have a valid marriage certificate at the registry? So your marriage, your relationship with your husband and wife in your bedroom is controlled by the federal government. My brothers, brilliant people on that panel, you can't grow a nation like that. You can't talk about security, about insecurity, when even the form you are going to fill asks you after your name and your father's name. They ask you about your religion. They ask you about your ethnic group. They ask you about your language, about your local government. So you have already segregated the nation. You have already divided us. You have already told us we are not one. And at the International Bar Conference I went for in Miami, Florida, I asked one American, I said, where are you from? He looked at me. I said, sorry sir, what do you mean? You mean where I live, or where I work, or where I was born, or where I schooled, or where I grew up? Because they don't have them. So sirs, you are going to tell us tonight, if it can be done in other countries, like Libya, Egypt, Tunisia, Eritrea, South Africa, having a brand new constitution that brings about the people's aspirations and hopes after a constituent assembly, a constitution that is therefore indigenous and autochthonous, enjoying the confidence and legitimacy of the people, such as we had it before, which must be subjected to a people's referendum, as we did in Nigeria when the Midwest region became autonomous from Western region on the 10th of August 1963. how are you going to go about the issue of us starting from brass tacks? Because talking about amending the Constitution under Section 9, you can't amend a bad document. The fact that you have put a bandage on your oozing sore and you put perfume and sarsaparilla does not make that sore to go away. It doesn't, does it? The fact that you are suffering epilepsy and you are treating it with a drug meant for eczema without, like Naaman the leper, dipping yourself in River Jordan 7 times to cleanse yourself of your leprosy, political leprosy, economic leprosy, social leprosy, cultural leprosy, without changing your moral ethos, societal values. How do you make us to grow without a brand new constitution? And if you are going to have one, how do you go about it? Thank you.
Thank you. The straightforward question, can you repeat that last part again? How do you intend on, just so that our presidential candidates answer your question directly, that last part, how do you...
The last part?
Yes, how do you improve on the Constitution?
Not improve. How do you replace the present militarily imposed constitution which has not given us our vision?
Thank you.
How do you start from the brass tacks?
Thank you very much. Let's get answers to this question. Candidates, again, you have 2 minutes to respond, please. Let's start from Professor Umuadi this time around.
Thank you. I'm running for president of Nigeria on the triple banner of the rule of law, separation of powers, and due process. Now, you see, I'm a realist. I belong to that school of thoughts in law. I'm a realist. So the reality is that I'm a presidential candidate under ABGA in partisan politics. And that, run is predicated under the Constitution of Nigeria of 1999 as amended. So I'm bound by it. If I become president, I will be president of a democratic Nigeria. And anything I want to do about whatever that I meet, not to talk about the Constitution, which is the grand norm, the basis of all the laws, the proper democratic processes. Whatever misgivings that we have about the Constitution will have to be looked at, and then we'll come to a decision by legitimate structures that are laid down, incidentally, according to the Constitution itself. Any other thing will be antithetical, and there will be no room to accommodate that.
Thank you. Mr. Shawara, can we get your response, please?
I am sure that learned SAN came a little late. I had spoken that the Nigerian Constitution is illegal, null and void by way of its makers. If you ask people in this gathering, the people who wrote the American Constitution was written around 1787, they will tell you those people's names. If I ask you if you knew anybody that participated in writing the 1999 Constitution, nobody can tell me. The people who wrote it. It was a fraudulent, illegally imposed document by the military. But let me tell you, learned SAN. In 1992, when I was 21 years old, we gathered, and you were there, with Akaba Shorun, Ganifa with me, and wanted to have a sovereign national conference in Lagos. because we're tired of the Nigerian constitution, the military sent police and soldiers to come and beat the heebie-jeebies out of us. Yes, this is the reality. So, when apartheid ended, even though those who emerged as apartheid leaders had to swear by a constitution, they erected a temporary, they made a temporary constitution. The Nigerian apartheid state, when it ends, hopefully in 2023, we need a brand new constitution. We cannot continue like this. We cannot continue because everything about Nigeria is fake. Because the country itself had foundational issues. It was set up as a business in 1900 by the Royal Niger Company. Even our police, which is part of our problem with security, the police was never created to provide security for Nigerians. There was a time it used to be called the Queen's Constabulary. So it has always had that DNA of VIP mentality since the police was created as a business with Nigeria to protect the business of Nigeria.
Thank you, Mr.
So,
Shore.
I just answered your question.
You.
Come early next time.
Thank you. Okay, Engineer Sani, let's get your response to this question as well, please.
I think it's the question of chicken and egg. Which one comes first? And I know that, yes, as a nation, we are aspiring to be as perfect as we can be. But I think perfection is a journey. It's not something that happens, all at once. And I think we're already on that journey. So long as we have National Assembly that's supposed to be active in this regard, making the Constitution to really address all the issues that all of us together represent, so long we are able to elect those that have the passion, the interest of Nigerians through credible elections. I'm sure we will get it right someday. But I think for now, we should rely on electing right people into the National Assembly to do the right things for us. And then I'm sure, even America, you mentioned, they do not only rely on the Constitution, which like it's not as heavy as what we have in Nigeria. They make laws, and these laws that are made are what fashion the way people live, to adapt to situations that will arise, so that they continue to live as happy people in one country. So for me, yes, we are not happy with what we have, but why don't we, like everybody does, all countries, they amend it. The amendment can be such that we will be able to cure, whatever this defect may be. So that's my submission.
Thank you, Engineer Sani. Prince Adebayo, over to you, sir.
Okay, this to me looks like a very simple problem. Just like the learned silk, I'm a constitutional lawyer in Nigeria. I'm also a constitutional lawyer in the US. So both the Nigerian Constitution and the US, I earn a living from using them. This is not a big problem. In Nigeria, we need to understand that our first constitution came out of Lancaster House when we went, and it was a Queen's order in council. So it was order in council. It wasn't an autonomous constitution, but it was an order in council promulgated by the British Parliament. And Awolowo was very angry because they nearly didn't form quorum when they were passing it. They saw it as an irrelevant legislation. But it produced the best schools we can get, a functioning regional government. And in 1963, first 1961, when what we call Sadauna province, when they wanted to leave the Trust Territory of Cameroon, they had a plebiscite. And that plebiscite made Mubi, all those other places, Song, in Adamawa now and Taraba, to join Nigeria. So, and the American Constitution was not democratic too when it started. It was just a bunch of plantation owners who gathered in Philadelphia and wrote something. They didn't include black people, they didn't include women. But there have been several amendments to the US Constitution. Someone who was not a white person will not be able to be an American citizen, but for the 14th and 15th amendment. So what I will do in Nigeria is to first obey the Constitution as it is now. In England, when I was born, the Scottish had no parliament. Now there's Scottish parliament, there's Welsh assembly. So you can always improve on your constitution. And we have made amendments. It's just that they're making amendments for big men. When one man dies, who takes over? When one man travels, who takes over? They're not making fundamental amendments that can help the people. And I love chapter 2 of the Constitution and chapter 4 of the Constitution. And remember, we had Constituent Assembly in 1977 and produced the 79 Constitution, which we are copying now.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you for